On the other side of towering iron gates, a lonely mansion stood silent, until one unexpected afternoon, a barefoot boy appeared in the garden. What began as a simple dance turned into something no doctor, no treatment, and no amount of wealth had been able to give. A spark that could change a life forever. Who was this boy, and why did his presence bring hope back to a home that had lost it? Stay with us, because what happens next will surprise you. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where you're watching from. If this story moved you, we'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Now, let's jump into the story. The Grayson Mansion stood at the edge of the city like a stone giant, tall and quiet, surrounded by iron gates and perfectly trimmed hedges. Its grand walls hid years of silence. No music, no chatter, no footsteps racing across the hall. Only the faint echo of memories that had long faded. Inside, Leonard Grayson moved through the wide halls with a measured step. He was a man of success, a businessman whose decisions shaped companies and built fortunes. Yet in his own home, he felt powerless. The joy had left the mansion a year ago, on the day a terrible car accident changed everything. Amelia Grayson, Leonard's only child, once ran through these halls with unstoppable energy. She had hair like soft gold and eyes that carried the brightness of summer skies. At 7 years old, she should have been playing, running, and exploring. But the accident had left her unable to walk, and since then, her world had shrunk to the space around her wheelchair. Days in the Grayson Mansion had become predictable. Mornings with gentle therapy sessions, afternoons by the tall windows where Amelia watched the outside world, and evenings where Leonard sat across from her at dinner, both speaking little. He had tried everything that money could buy, specialists from around the world, advanced treatments, and endless exercises. Nothing worked. Each failed attempt weighed on him, like stones he could not put down. That afternoon was warm, with sunlight spilling over the garden. Leonard stepped outside, expecting to see the usual scene. Amelia sitting quietly near the fountain, her hands resting on her lap, her gaze far away. But what he saw instead made him stop in place. There it was. Laughter. Not the polite, thin laugh she gave when someone tried to cheer her up. This was real, full, and bright, echoing across the lawn like it belonged there. Amelia's cheeks were flushed, her eyes wide with delight. She clapped her hands in quick bursts, and every so often she leaned forward in her chair, as if trying to get closer. In front of her, a boy danced barefoot on the grass. He was small, maybe 10 years old, with dark curls that caught the sunlight and skin touched by the warm bronze of long days outside. His clothes were worn, an oversized gray shirt and shorts that had seen better days. His knees were scraped, and his ankles carried a faint dust. But there was nothing tired about his movements. The boy danced with wild energy, hopping from side to side, waving his arms in exaggerated shapes, spinning until he nearly stumbled, then catching himself with a dramatic pose. He winked at Amelia, who laughed so hard she had to wipe her eyes. He dropped to the ground, rolled, and popped back up, his grin never fading. Leonard's first thought was intrusion. This was his property, private and secured. How had this boy gotten in? Where was the security team? He took one step forward, ready to call out. But then he stopped. Amelia was different. She was leaning forward, her back straight, her arms moving in small bursts as if she was trying to mimic the boy's dance. Her toes twitched ever so slightly inside her sandals. Leonard's breath caught. It had been months since he had seen her this engaged in anything. The boy glanced toward him for the briefest moment. Leonard expected him to freeze or run, but instead, The boy spun in a wide circle and bowed like a performer at the end of a grand show. Amelia clapped louder, her smile glowing. Leonard moved back behind a tall column, half hidden by its shadow. He didn't want to break the moment. Something was happening here, something fragile. He could feel it. The mansion had been quiet for so long that this sound, his daughter's laughter, felt almost unreal. Minutes passed. The boy danced, and Amelia's laughter filled the space. Leonard's eyes stayed fixed on her face. The heaviness in his chest eased slightly, replaced by a strange feeling he had almost forgotten. Hope. As the boy dropped into another playful move, Amelia leaned forward again, clapping with more strength than before. Leonard noticed the faint movement of her legs, a sign so small, yet so important, that he almost stepped out to say something. But he stayed still. This was not the time to interrupt. He didn't know who the boy was, or why he was here. He didn't know how he had gotten past the gates. But as Leonard watched his daughter light up in a way he thought he might never see again, he knew one thing. This boy had brought something back into her life that no doctor or treatment had managed to restore. And Leonard Grayson was not about to let that slip away. The next afternoon, Leonard Grayson stood by the garden doors, waiting. The memory of yesterday's laughter still lingered in his mind, almost like a dream he didn't want to wake from. Amelia was already outside, her wheelchair positioned near the fountain, her eyes scanning the tall hedges as though she expected something, or someone. It did not take long. From the far side of the lawn, through a small gap in the hedge, the same boy slipped into view. Barefoot again, his hair wild and untamed, his gray shirt now carrying fresh dust from the streets. He walked with a light step, his grin returning the moment he spotted Amelia. "Ready for the show?" he called out, his voice carrying across the grass. Amelia's face lit up instantly. "Yes!" she clapped, leaning forward, her excitement clear. But before the boy could start, Leonard stepped forward from the shade. The boy stopped mid-step. The smile faded just slightly, replaced with a flicker of worry. His eyes darted toward the hedge, then back to Amelia. "I'm sorry," the boy said quickly, his voice softer now. "I didn't mean to—" "It's all right," Leonard interrupted, his tone firm but not unkind. "I just want to talk." Amelia's head turned sharply toward her father, her voice filled with urgency. "Please don't make him go. He's my friend." Those words hit Leonard with unexpected weight. He crouched down so he was level with the boy, his gaze steady. "What's your name?" "Milo," the boy answered after a short pause. "How old are you, Milo?" 10, I think," he said, his voice dropping lower. "You think?" Leonard asked, keeping his voice calm. Milo glanced at Amelia, then down at the grass. "I don't really know my birthday. Nobody ever told me. There's never been a cake or anything like that." Leonard felt a knot tighten in his chest. "Where do you live?" Milo hesitated. "Around. Sometimes at the train station. Sometimes in an old shed near the market if no one's there. I just find places." Amelia's hands gripped the arms of her wheelchair. "He's not bad, Daddy. He makes me happy." Leonard looked at her, really looked. Her cheeks were flushed with life, her posture more upright than he had seen in months. She was right. He turned back to Milo. "What were you doing here yesterday?" Milo shifted on his feet. "I was walking by and heard music from the garden. I saw her watching from over there, but she looked sad. So I started dancing, just to make her laugh. But then she told me to do more, so I came closer. I wasn't trying to take anything. I just—" His voice trailed off before he whispered, "She looked like she needed it." Leonard stayed silent for a long moment, the boy's words hanging in the air. Then he turned to Amelia. "How do you feel right now?" "Happy," she said without hesitation. "Like I can move again, even if I can't." Leonard's eyes dropped to her bare feet. His breath caught when he saw it. Her toes moved. Not much, just a small twitch, but it was there. He straightened slowly, his mind turning over the moment. This boy, who had nothing, had brought something to his daughter that no amount of money had managed to give her. Over the next few days, Leonard made a quiet decision. Instead of sending Milo away, he told the security guards to let him in whenever he came. Each afternoon, Milo arrived, sometimes with a small stone he thought Amelia might like, sometimes with a story from the streets, and always with his boundless energy. He danced in silly, exaggerated ways, spun in circles until he fell onto the grass, and acted out imaginary scenes that made Amelia laugh until her eyes watered. Amelia joined in however she could, lifting her arms to match his movements, leaning forward to mimic his spins, and even pushing herself in small circles with her wheelchair. Every day, her energy seemed to grow. Leonard watched from the background, rarely interrupting. He noticed changes, her posture stronger, her arms steadier, and those small, almost hidden movements in her legs. The change was subtle, but it was there. Milo never spoke much about himself, and Leonard didn't press. For now, it was enough to see what his presence was doing for Amelia. She looked forward to each afternoon, counting the minutes until the boy appeared through the hedge again. Leonard still didn't know exactly why Milo had chosen to stop and dance that first day. But as he stood in the garden, watching his daughter laugh in the warm light of the setting sun, he realized something important. Sometimes the greatest gifts come from the most unexpected people, and deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. Over the next week, the garden of the Grayson mansion became a place of life again. Each afternoon, Milo appeared through the gap in the hedge, barefoot and smiling, carrying with him the kind of energy that seemed to push the shadows away. Amelia would already be waiting, her chair angled toward the sunlight, her hands ready to clap. Milo's dances grew more creative each one afternoon. Dr. Mendel, Amelia's longtime physician, arrived for a routine checkup. He was a calm man with kind eyes who had been honest from the start about the challenges of her recovery. After the examination, he looked up at Leonard with surprise. "Her muscle activity is improving," Dr. Mendel said. "Whatever you've been doing, keep doing it. This kind of emotional engagement is rare, and it's making a difference." Leonard didn't explain much. How could he? How could he put into words that a boy with no home, no resources, and no formal training was doing what specialists from around the world had failed to do? A few days later, the spark of change became something neither Leonard nor Amelia would forget. It was late afternoon, the air warm and golden. Milo had found an old scarf in his pocket and was using it as part of his routine, spinning it around and tossing it into the air for dramatic effect. Amelia clapped and leaned forward to catch it when he let it fall toward her. Then, without warning, she placed her hands firmly on the armrests of her wheelchair, pushed down hard, and lifted herself halfway out of the seat. Her arms shook with effort, her face flushed, but she stayed upright for a full 3 seconds before settling back down. Leonard froze where he stood. His heart pounded as if he had just run a race. Milo dropped the scarf and whooped loudly, spinning in a circle, before kneeling beside Amelia. "You did it," Milo said, grinning wide. Amelia's breathing was quick, but her smile was brighter than ever. "I really did it," she gasped. Leonard moved closer, kneeling so he was level with her. "You are amazing," he said softly, brushing a loose curl from her face. Then he looked at Milo. And so are you. The moment hung between them, warm and full of possibility. Leonard realized that this was not a small step. It was a sign. Something was waking inside his daughter, and it was happening because of a friendship that had begun with a simple dance on the grass. From that day on, Milo added more physical challenges to their games. He encouraged Amelia to reach higher, lean further, and use her arms to spin her chair faster. Each time, she rose to the challenge with determination that surprised even herself. Leonard began to notice small changes in other ways, too. Amelia spoke more at dinner, telling him about Milo's silly stories, or the little treasures he brought her, a smooth pebble, a feather, or a flower from beyond the gates. Her laughter sometimes carried down the halls long after the afternoon sun had set, and for Leonard, those sounds were more valuable than anything his fortune could buy. They were proof that life was returning, not just to his daughter, but to their home. Still, in the quiet moments, Leonard wondered how long this could last. Milo's life beyond the gates was still a mystery. He didn't know where the boy went at night, what dangers he faced, or if one day he might simply vanish as quickly as he had appeared. But for now, he pushed those thoughts aside. There would be time for answers later. What mattered was the present, the spark that had been lit in Amelia's spirit, and the boy who had brought it to life. It was late evening when Leonard found Milo sitting quietly on the back steps of the mansion. The garden behind them was still warm from the day's sun, and the faint sound of water from the fountain filled the silence. Milo's knees were drawn up to his chest, his chin resting on them, and for the first time since Leonard had met him, the boy's lively energy seemed dimmed. "You're still here," Leonard said gently, stepping closer. Milo looked up and gave a small shrug. "I was just waiting. It's safer to walk when it's dark." Leonard sat down beside him. "Safer than what?" Milo hesitated, then said quietly, "People notice less when it's I can find a place to sleep without anyone chasing me off." Leonard was silent for a moment, the words settling heavy in his chest. "Milo, you can't keep living like this." "Been doing it for years," Milo replied, his voice low, almost matter-of-fact. "Not anymore," Leonard said firmly. "From today, you live here." Milo's head turned sharply. "What? You'll have your own room, meals every day, clothes that fit. You'll go to school, and you'll still spend every afternoon with Amelia in the garden. You'll be part of this family." Milo blinked, his mouth opening and closing as if searching for the right words. "Why? You don't even know me." Leonard looked at him steadily. "Because you gave my daughter something no doctor, no therapy, and no amount of money could give her. You gave her hope, and I won't let the person who did that sleep on a cold floor again." Milo swallowed hard and looked away, but not before Leonard saw the shine of tears in his eyes. "I don't know what to say," the boy whispered. "Just say yes," Leonard replied. The next morning, the mansion felt different. The sound of footsteps echoed down the hall, Milo's light, quick steps, mixed with Amelia's cheerful voice as she called out to him. He had been given a small room near the garden, and though it was simple, to Milo it was more than he had ever dreamed of having. Each afternoon, the three of them gathered in the garden. Milo danced. Amelia clapped and joined in however she could, and Leonard stood nearby, sometimes watching, sometimes even trying a clumsy move or two that made them both laugh. But the biggest change came 1 week later. Amelia and Milo had been practicing a little routine together, Milo moving in circles, tossing a scarf into the air, and Amelia catching it with her hands. On that day, as the scarf floated down, Amelia leaned forward, grabbed it, and then, without thinking, pushed hard on the armrests of her chair. She rose all the way to her feet. It lasted only a moment before she sat back down, but it was long enough for Leonard to see the look in her eyes, determination, pride, and pure joy. "You did it," Milo said, beaming. Amelia grinned. "We did it." That night, after Amelia was asleep, Leonard stood in the doorway of Milo's room. The boy was sitting on his bed, sketching something on a scrap of paper. "What are you drawing?" Leonard asked. "Plans," Milo said with a shy smile. "For a show. Me and Amelia are going to perform in the garden. You can invite the neighbors. We'll make them smile too." Leonard felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. "Then we'll make it happen," he said. And so, a few weeks later, the mansion's garden was alive with people, neighbors, friends, and even some of Leonard's business associates. Fairy lights hung between the trees, music played softly, and at the center, Amelia and Milo performed their simple but heartfelt routine. The crowd clapped and cheered, but Leonard barely heard them. His eyes were on his daughter, standing for a few seconds at a time, her face glowing with happiness. Beside her, Milo's smile was just as bright. For the first time in years, the mansion did not feel like a place of silence and loss. It felt like home. And as Leonard looked at the two children, he knew that the gift Milo had given them was not just hope. It was the reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can change a life forever.